heard I look like Trevette from Walker, Texas Ranger, Jay-Z, Manny Fresh, and I can't remember the other person. Oh, Jordan Peele. I should have told her I was Jordan Peele.
I bet I could see Jay-Z if you had the hair.
Yeah, I still think that he plants that on daily, but whatever. That kind of natural, rapid hair growth at his age and no grays. Come on.
Yeah. Well, they have all those tricks.
Movie magic.
They have all those tricks. That's why everybody. I'm like, if it was your job to look.
No, where did you come up with the separate residence thing?
Well, so right out of my divorce, I dated a musician in Nashville after my divorce. And we discussed like, hey, if we make this thing work, I think we should have separate residences because
in the same town.
In the same town. And, come to your house, you come to my house. Because I had kids. He didn't have kids. He had never married, no kids. And we just thought that might make it last.
Well, I guess people have separate residences when they're dating. So
yeah,
it's not but in marriage, I think it would be a little, but it's like you said, I do agree with your statement about separate bathrooms.
The bathrooms.
You got, because the thing is, right, like you just shouldn't get, and I know how people feel about farting and everything, but I'm not going to get comfortable with just like walking in, hey, did you pay the gas bill? It's like, I'm not going to do that.
But I love farting.
And just like I said, it's just when she's like, oh, I got a headache, or not tonight, honey. Like I said, you gotta be able to go somewhere and, like I said, just
pray.
Have a talk with yourself. You got to be able to connect with yourself. So, but anyway.
Well, I think, I can understand from a first marriage point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but you have to remember, I'm a nurse. I'm all up in people's stuff. So I'm extremely comfortable with that kind of situation. And then I'm also divorced. So I feel like after being married.
How long were you a nurse?
I've been a nurse since 1996.
So, all right, there are like a number of stories about nurses, like don't date a nurse, don't get with a nurse, because
they crazy.
And the proclivity to find the nearest closet. It's how much do you lend to that? Like, would you tell somebody, like if I came to you and I was like, hey, Zeita, I'm dating this girl. She's amazing. She's a nurse. Like, what would be the first red alert that goes off in your head?
Well, I would say, and I am one, remember, we're speaking from, but I think nurses can be, in my experience, which is limited, some of the most dysfunctional people, usually from a lot of trauma, a lot of chaos. There's usually some event in a family system that drove somebody to become a nurse. So I would say take a long time to get to know that girl. Because
caring. The promiscuity part?
Well, no, I don't think that's as much. I don't know. I think that's just individuals. But I think nurses can be, I've met some of the most cuckoo people who are nurses, myself included. If you ask people who are close to me, they would say, I have a really good friend in Nashville that says that I am cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but harmless. So, a lot of nurses come out of dysfunctional families.
Well, I got to welcome you back. It's by popular demand, by the way.
Oh.
A number of people were wanting you back. They wanted us to go deeper into the episode. And I was like, what do you want? Like, what do you want from us? But anyway, I'm listening. So you're here, you're back. And I'm glad you did. I really looked forward to this. And thank you for doing it. Welcome back. You drove.
Me too, always. I drove 6 hours. I left at 5:45 this morning. Mm-hmm. So I'm a little cuckoo nana, but it's good. No, I so appreciate that. Let's give the people what they want.
Hey, if you're with it, I'm with it. I've had a good day. So it's one of those, let's start a fight somewhere. With them, not us. With them, not us.
Well, so I thought about when I was driving down, I thought I almost did a little Instagram video live or something saying, we're going to talk about Northeast Jackson. We're going to talk about some racial stuff. We're going to talk about some white privilege stuff. Like if you have anything that you want to say or ask that maybe you don't, especially if you're in the Jackson area, you've grown up in the 70s in Jackson or whatever.
I wish you would have done that.
I didn't. I wanted to ask your permission because then I thought, what if these people show up?
And I wish you would have told all the nurses that follow you to call me, like, come stay in live.
If you're interested in a separate bathroom, please show up at the manship.
Let's stay silly for a second. I was reading something earlier today about the birthing process. And the question was, should men be in the room when their significant other is giving birth? And I had to think about that for a second, A, because I don't have any children that I know of, or they're legally allowed in the country. You know, maybe, you know. But I started thinking about that because it was, tell me why that is from your side.
From my perspective, and
why men do you think they should be, and why should they or should they not be in the room?
I think they should. I understand that if you're not medical, I mean, I'm medical, so I'm like, everybody should see the reality of a human coming into this world. I think it is the most wonderful thing ever. When my second daughter was born, my mom had 2 cesareans, so she was kind of knocked out and behind that sheet. And she asked me, she said, can I come into your delivery? And at first my husband was like, I don't know that. And I said, please let her. Please let her. She's never experienced, and she doesn't need it. And it's years later. That was the 70s. So to me, that's just real life.
But it's tough. See, me, I'm coming in there like Stevie Wonder. I'm just, I'm not looking at anything because I don't want to see. I don't think personally I would want to see that. But the article went further on to state like why more men after the birthing process cheat after seeing that, because they kind of, something turns off for them for their woman. And I want to know, what's your thoughts on that?
All right, let's think about that for a minute. So I do understand that, because there's an element of, like I said earlier, I asked my dad, you're married 47 years. You guys are so happy. Why are you happy? Immediately, without missing a beat, he said, we have separate bathrooms. I know your mom poops. I don't want to see it. I don't want to smell it. I don't want to know. I don't want to. Yeah. So
I don't want to.
So, all right. And that, I hear you and I understand that. And so maybe it takes a little something off of, it does.
When I have girls over, I'll go to the other bathroom. I don't want to. I'm dead serious. I don't want to. Yeah.
Well, I think there are a lot of people that feel that way. I personally am like, let's get into real life. This is what happens. Everybody poops. I've catheterized many people. I catheterized my own father when he was dying. So, I mean, to me, a body is a body is a body. But I think that took years and years and years of, having that experience. And then I also just think it's a beautiful thing to be with somebody in their most vulnerable times. We talked about that last time. Me being a doula, being a nurse, we get to do that. But I do understand why the birth thing, because it is pretty nasty.
Did you have shared bathrooms coming up?
Well, with my brother, yeah.
Yeah, see, I had to share a bathroom with my sisters. And so maybe that could be the thing. But then I've also lived on my own for like the last 22 decades as well. Yeah. So somebody coming into my space maybe that's why dating is so hard right now, because I've developed my ways. I know if anything's moved in my house, period, point blank.
Okay, I think that's a real thing. I do, because I will say I'm 52. I was married for 15 years. I've been single now since I was 38, meaning not married, not living with somebody like that. I think the older we get more particular and set in our ways. You hear it, it's a cliche. Obviously, there's something to it. But I do think that it's harder. It's harder to, if you grab somebody and you kind of mold lives at 20 something.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easier because you never get that luxury of knowing like your own space and time and bathroom.
Yeah, because if a girl comes over and sits on my bed in the clothes she's been wearing outside, like she might get it. Like I might throw an alarm clock at it. It's like, get off my newly washed sheets with them outside clothes. Or it's pollen season.
Are you a little clean freak kind of?
No, don't sit on my bed with them pollen stained clothes.
Are you a little OCD?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've been by myself, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, OCD
wash the sheets every week. Just outside clothes is we sit on all these surfaces all day. And from the car to just sitting there, don't come sit on the place that, that's where I dream about mermaids.
Okay, so OCD is rooted in anxiety. I know a lot about it. So are you an anxious person?
Anxious? I would say so. But a recent development that I've had is I stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop in situations.
Okay.
It's been a you understand that? Like, a lot of people, things will go wrong because they're always waiting on the other shoe to drop. They can't be happy in something.
Yes.
And I don't know, one day I just, maybe it was the kidney failure or something, but one day I just stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop or stopped willing it to drop and just put both on at the same time.
I resonate with that.
That is.
And I'll tell you why. Because I think this is one of the beautiful gifts that we touched on this last episode, but that death gives you, or, kidney failure, you have to contemplate death. You have to look at your mortality. You have to think about it. And
you got to give up control.
And there's something about that is radically freeing.
Mm-hmm.
If you lean into it.
I never would have done this podcast or a number of things that I've done if it wasn't for this, because I pretty much I still give a fuck what people think, but it doesn't weigh on. I don't feel the guilt of it after the fact as much as I used to. Now it might be like, I'll just say, I don't care what you think. And then I'm going to think about it for a second, but then I'm going to turn the music up and keep going.
It's not running the show.
Yeah.
It's not running the show. That's a beautiful gift.
Let me ask you something. Is real wealth quiet?
Oh, that's a great question.
You've grown up around a lot of it, so is it truly quiet?
So, like we keep saying, I can only speak from my limited experience, but in my case and what I know, yes, because I think my father did such a great job. We were very wealthy. I didn't know that. I did. I mean, I knew that we had
there were signs.
There were signs.
Yeah.
There was evidence, but I had no idea because he lived so far below his means and he kept us in that. And there was a quiet kind of ease with which he moved about the world. So, but I still think, wealth is, there are so many different kinds of wealth. And obviously we're speaking of monetary. You got money in the bank, you got the freedom. Wealth is freedom. It's opportunity, in that capacity. And I think sometimes when you've had money long enough to know that it isn't going to fix anything, it does become quiet because you realize like, oh, okay, I got a little peace of mind. I got a little rest. I got a little opportunity, but I can't make myself truly happy through monetary stuff.
And it invites other people to come in. If they know, then they take advantage. So it's like celebrities, right? They say, oh, I know who my friends are because they don't ask me for anything. And I didn't even want to become famous. And I call bullshit on all that. And here's why. If you're doing something that you know can lead to fame, whether you're a music artist, actor, or whatever, then you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't put it out there for consumption. So some parts of you do want it, right?
I think human beings want to be seen and heard on some level. Some of us have grown up in families where we really weren't seen and heard. And Hollywood is full of those people. And so I think...
Yeah, Diddy loved them.
You know, I mean, and it makes sense. So I think... I don't know, but I think fame is so different than what people think once you get it. I have a few famous friends, and it's I think it's challenging to a certain degree, and it's lonely, and it's costly in a different kind of way, in a spiritual kind of way. Sometimes, I mean, obviously, I'm not famous, but I've got some friends in that, and my experience is limited. But
yeah, and it's. Again, like to say that, oh, you're only around me because I'm famous. And it's like, well, yeah. Like you're famous. Like that's what comes with it.
Yeah.
And so like you should, but I feel like when that fame is taken away, then it wants to be like, I know who my friends are. When it's like, well, when we were trying to be your friend, when you thought we weren't, you were an asshole. So yeah, you lost your friends, and so. But anyway,
it's complicated.
Yeah,
it's like Facebook when it's like it's complicated. It's a complicated. It's a complex relationship. I think.
Do you think we make our own complications? Like if people communicated effectively, I think you could have very little problems if communication was effective.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, if you stated. I think so.
Well, and also if people were comfortable and felt, trust and safety. Trust and safety. I say this all the time to my kids. Trust and safety. We have to feel safe in order to trust. And when we truly feel safe and connected to somebody, then we can have an exchange that is, more honest and more productive. So we have, we live in a society that now it's like you can't say anything. You're scared to death to say anything. And I understand that. So I think that breeds a lot of our PC stuff.
Let's stay on trust. Something just came to me.
Okay.
When it comes to trust or like faith, all those words, I often wonder how people can say they believe so much in like God, the Bible, the whole nine. You can't see him. You say that you can talk to him, and they can have faith of a mustard seed, as they say, right? Yeah. And if you can have faith in this person that you've never met, never seen, don't know if truly existed, and you can believe it wholeheartedly with your heart, then I wonder why so many people have such a hard time believing that blacks are equal. That you see every day. And we're showing and proving. Why do you think? Is it hypocrites or what?
That is a great reflection and observation, and relevant, especially where we are from. Well, that's kind of loaded. Let me have a sip. Well, first of all, I was just driving down here listening to this song, and I love this song. And there is, and I hope I don't mess this up, but it says, oh, the overwhelming reckless love of God that knocks through, will come after you and do. That is who I know God to be. And so my faith comes from a place where there's no way you can believe in the God that I know and see color of any kind whatsoever.
Well, you can see it, just not react negatively.
Well, you can't let it be a distinguishing factor.
Yeah.
It's not, Lucinda Bell, who we talked about last episode, one of the reasons I'm so grateful is she taught me about that God, a loving, compassionate God that came to this earth to know us and love us. I think every human being wants to be known, wants to be loved. I think our churches have failed in a lot of ways, and presented a different God.
They wouldn't if they had to pay taxes. But.
Well, that is a great statement. Okay, so it's interesting, but I'm going to tell this story because it is relevant, and it is how I can tell you how I know. As I listened to that song today driving down, I wish I had the lyrics. I would pull them up, but my memory is menopausal, and that's okay. So when I was married, I had an affair in my marriage, and I slept with this kid he wasn't a kid, but he was 24 years old. I was 36 years old. And one day I was at his apartment, and after we had slept together, I was sitting there on his bed, and I was thinking through, like, you know, all of the things that like my parents would say to me in that moment, how they would respond. I thought about what some of my friends would say. I thought about what, just how I would be viewed, and for the decision that I was making. And I very obviously knew that was wrong. You know, the infidelity was not a question in my belief system about what was right or wrong for me. And I heard in my spirit, I heard God say to me, you know, Zeita, it's just that I made you for more than this. So let's get up and go home. And I was floored because that voice didn't come from me. That's not what I was playing in my head. And that's not what my parents would have played and said to me. And that's not what I would have known. But what that said to me is that my God is a God who understands humanity, who is offering me more to this life than what I might think is where it's at. And I knew that, but I remember kind of having a moment with myself and who I know to be God, and saying, if that's who you are, if that is really who you are, and that's how you respond to me in my lowest moment, like I'm in some apartment in Hollywood on somebody's bed, you know, who I'm not married to, and I have a husband and kids at home, like, you know, that's a pretty low moment. And I heard that voice, and I just was like, I will follow you anywhere. If that is who you are. So that's my experience of who God is.
Do you want to stay on that topic?
We can go wherever you want to go.
Because
I didn't intend to tell that story, but I love to tell that story.
And I'm glad you did. And so like, is cheating really bad, or is it something that's been beat upon us? Because you know my thoughts on a lot of things, that marriage in itself, the contract and the bindingness of it, was basically something that some dude put in place a long time ago because he couldn't control his woman. And it was like, you're gonna stay right here. And he was like, we're gonna come up with this piece of paper and this, and so you gonna stay right here. And if you don't, because I think in Mississippi the man has to sign a divorce, right, in order to grant it.
Well, you know what? I didn't divorce.
Isn't that some draconian ass law?
I mean, both parties have. Well, we filed irreconcilable differences, interestingly, but you know, I think it's just trust and safety. Trust and safety. How can you feel safe? I mean, I made a decision that made my husband not feel safe and could not trust me. I think just in general, that breaks relationships down. I don't think that brings something to a relationship. I think it works against a relationship.
But in order to do that, you had to not be feeling safe in the first place.
That's right. And marriages, I always say, affairs are not about the other people that you get involved with. Affairs are about a failing marriage.
Yeah.
They're about something that is not working and connecting, and it's not about, which was true in our case too.
And to those listening, I'm not encouraging affairs. I'm just saying, don't get caught.
No. No, because you erode. I mean, you know, what is interesting is you erode. I just understand it differently now, having experienced it. And I think what happens too is we we hurt ourselves. You know, there's a reason and from my belief system that God asks us to be faithful to the commitment and covenant of marriage. And it is for the betterment of our spiritual growth and understanding who he is. And I certainly wasn't doing that and experiencing those consequences. So I think having done that experience, I wouldn't choose that again. Yeah. I would not want to, like, I don't have any interest in that whatsoever.
That's why I don't date now or try not to. It's just, because it's.
You're just going to run the other way.
Well, now you meet someone.
Sorry.
You meet someone and she already got however many guys in her inbox, however many guys in her DMs, however many guys are in her texting her. So you got to just fight all of these guys to even get a date. Whereas beforehand, no, you got to fight all these guys to get attention. And she's already, you're just another number. If you say or do something wrong, you're gone. Next guy's up. He says to do something wrong, you're gone. Next guy's up. And it's just a complete endless cycle.
It's anxiety producing.
Yeah. And it's like hey, what happens to just, like, I don't know. That's a long conversation. I don't want to get into that.
That is. And the cliff notes of my view is you can't miss what was meant for you. So so don't sweat it. The right person will come at the right time and you will have the opportunity. And if you are truly and authentically yourself and that person is made for you, you will connect. I know that a lot of people think that sounds, ideal or whatever, but I think
we can convince
true.
Ourselves of whatever we want to.
Sure.
Yeah, you can do that the whole nine.
The whole nine.
If you want something bad enough, you can convince yourself, period.
Yeah, the mind is a powerful persuasion master.
Speaking of, no, I'm not going to do it.
Do it.
I want to talk about.
This is behind the manners. This is not, come on.
Yeah, I'll come back to it.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah, I'll come back to it. I want to talk about, I don't think we talked about it last time on The Help. And how your mom and her friends were the inspiration for those characters in the hit The Help. Now,
I'm going to start and then go backwards. So first of all, one of my proudest moments, Lucinda Bell and I watched that movie together. And she looked at me, Lucinda Bell is my nanny growing up that we talked about last time. And she looked at me and she was like, whew, certainly wasn't like that at our house, baby, was it? And I was like, yes, that is a proud, proud moment for me. However, my mother did recognize a lot of those characters. And Catherine Stockett, who wrote that book, was the daughter of one of my dad's business partners. And Catherine and I did these horseback overnights with our dads when we were younger. And I think that character is loosely built on her, Skeeter, from the book.
Yeah.
And we would talk about, she was like, I'm going to New York. I'm getting out of here. And I was like, I'm going to LA. I'm getting out of here. And we both did.
How do you think that level of cognitive dissonance was prevalent in that time and still remains when they would allow us to cook your food, take care of your children, even have them suckle at their breast. But to consider that person, and sometimes even fuck it, I'll say it, rape, breed with, but to consider that person non-human, how do you think that level of just separation occurs?
Over many generations of ignorance and trauma and evil. Just evil.
Yeah.
Because it is so, I mean, we talked about this last time, but it's so hard for me to wrap my brain around because of what somebody of color meant to my person. Like, I just can't. It does not, my life would not be the same. So,
how do you feel when someone who doesn't know your upbringing and they see you? Because before I truly knew you and I saw you posting pictures, you were the only white female amongst a number of blacks at her funeral. And I was like,
yeah.
I don't know what to think here. Cause she's like, because like I knew it was genuine, but it was still like weird for me to see because we don't see that in the South. Someone to be that genuine and that caring, you know, it's one of those, like the first time I went to see Captain America, Brave New World, and I saw Anthony Mackie come on screen. I couldn't believe it at first because I wasn't used to seeing a black man in that position. And it was like, hey, y'all left somebody out, man. We need to, they ain't got no white folks in this. It was like, help us out. But it took me a minute to watch it. So, but then knowing you how I know you now, I can see you post that video and smile versus when I first saw it.
How did it make you feel?
I was just like, this feels weird. But then I know you now and I know your heart. So it's like, it's I can accept it and take it in now. So I would hate to see what happens when someone who doesn't know you and they would spew hate at you.
For being the only white girl.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just so loaded. Like, how many hours do we have? But I felt so chosen by her. You know, you have to think about, this is somebody that I knew and loved so well, who seated me on the front row with her children. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's my mama. So I felt so chosen. So I guess, but at the same time, I understand there were a lot of people there and they're like, who is this? You know, if you didn't know the story, but there's the lesson just for all of us. Be curious to know people's story. Don't hate so quickly. Ask the questions. Find out their story. Who are you? Who were these people to you? Where do we come from? Like, you and I have lived all over this country and outside of it in some capacity. And the greatest gift that gave me is just that human beings are all the same. We all have the same needs. We grew up in a sector that operates like this. I think it's just messed up. If there's any remnants of it, and there are. I mean, I act like, aren't there any, but there are. But it does speak to get curious, because if you don't know the story, if you know the story of who Lucinda Bell was to me, then you would know on either side that I belong there.
I'm curious now, because it's like, how did you maintain that innocence? Because we all know racism is taught in the home.
Yeah.
Kids aren't born with racism. During that time, how did you manage to keep your innocence about it all? And then to be able to get to a point and be like, no, it's wrong. Understand it's wrong. And then say, I'm getting the fuck out of here. I'm not raising my kids in this. Like, what was the difference?
The relationship. With Lucinda and her family. I'm like, these people are so incredibly important to me. And you're saying that their people are not technically supposed to mix with my people, or we live in a city. I've said this so many times. What is it? 82, 83% African-American. I grew up in Eastover. I'm like, and you got no black friends. Like, you got 83%, the city, Hinds County, come on. And you got no black friends. You got no black people in Eastover. Like, how can that be representative of our city?
Yeah.
Like, you can't.
It's funny you say that, because sometimes people will request me on social media and I'll look at their profile and I'll see that there are no black people, no Indian, no Chinese, no nothing. It's just all white. And I'll look at it and I'll hit decline. And it's not because it's not because you are refusing, you just don't have any. So it's like, all right, I can see your entire life. And no one outside of everyone looks different than you. So we're not going to relate. Or I know that might be a little unfair, but it's like, come on, like, get out into the world.
Well, are you open to me challenging something there a little bit?
Say that again?
Are you open to me challenging something there?
Yeah, please. That's why I said it.
Because you asked me, how did I maintain my innocence? And I would say to you, be the one person that accepts and gets involved.
But
Because
we've been doing that for too long. We're tired. Like, hey, bring me some cornbread. Like,
I mean, but I grew up with people that weren't saying yes and being friends and doing, and because those were my people. I just showed up. I just continually showed up.
Yeah, and just piggybacking on your question that you asked me, it's just I've taken up that mantle long enough of being the non-threatening Black guy in the room. And it's like, yeah, I'm tired. Like it's why do I have to make you feel comfortable with my presence? Like that's just I told you about that like wedding conversation, the stages of being Black at a all white wedding and how it proceeds. And it's like, yeah, wedding invitations now. I'm like, no, I'm good, man. I'm like, I got treatment. I'm gonna blame it on the kidneys.
Well, okay, so that brings up and we've talked a little bit about white privilege and what that means and how that feels. And I just had a moment where I realized, it would be much easier for me to just continuously show up in a place that is all Black and not feel as threatened as somebody who is Black showing up in a place that is all white or is all whatever over and over and over. So go with that.
Why do you think white privilege is so hard for some to admit? Like, we're not saying it as a bad thing. It's like, just recognize that you got a leg up.
I mean, that's such a great question. I mean, of course, I'm going to speak from this side. Mm-hmm. We live in such a shame culture. So I feel like people on some level, even if you're not in tune or in touch, you know that you can't judge somebody because of the color of their skin. So it's inherently shameful to feel like you are better than but our culture, I mean, I told you the story last time of my grandmother screaming in the parking lot of Red Lobster because a Black man parked his car and was going into the restaurant. He
just wanted some biscuits. He was gonna bring a couple of biscuits.
He just wanted some fried scrimps. That's what we were going there for. Like that. I mean, that's one of the most embarrassing moments for me as a person. But understanding, if compassion was met on all sides, my grandmother never ever saw a Black person in any capacity, but as somebody cleaning her home, feeding, cooking her, just like we talked about earlier. So, ignorance and just kind of why do people, like when this really spoke to me when I lived in California. I brought my kids here for the summer and my kids would always say, Mommy, why does everybody in Jackson want to be the same? Whereas these are children. And I'm like, oh my God, y'all are geniuses out of the mouth of babes. And they're like, where we live, it's okay to be different but why does everybody want to be the same? Limited exposure.
I love that. And I'm gonna close it on that point about our last conversation. And this could be the case for every small town. But I know here and the surrounding towns is so prevalent, and you see it often. Why I often ask myself the question, why people feel so big here and have no idea how small they are on the scale of things. And I think it's because they've never seen something bigger than them, because this is the only thing they see. When they travel, they take the same friends.
Yeah.
When they and this is just a personal preference for me. I'm not judging, but I just think you shouldn't, if you travel to Italy, for instance, don't put on a school polo. Why are you wearing college paraphernalia in Italy? I'm pretty sure that person that does that is the kind of person that goes over to their country and say, hey, speak English. So.
Exposure.
Yeah.
Limited exposure. And I think that is such a great observation. It's one of the things that has made it hard. I came back and lived here for 2 years, but it made it really difficult to do that, because I no longer look at the world the way I did when I left. And it's
that's
a
why
bubble.
a lot of them don't leave.
It's a
because
bubble.
they're going to be small anywhere else they go.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful gift to be small at some point in your life. Like that should be something
Be
that
made
we
to feel
see.
small.
Yes, yes, yes. It's transformative.
I think we did it. I know one of the first persons that's going to comment on this is my friend Marquita Crupples. And so I hope we gave her what she wanted, because I know she's going to be the first one. It's like, oh my God. So
I hope we gave the people what they want.
Well, yeah. I'm glad you held back those tears too. So I was like, no, don't do it. Because then I'm going to cry. And I don't want to be a little bitch. Don't do that. So thank you.
But it's true.
Again for coming back. And that drive, like I gotta say, thank you for making the drive. Like everybody thought your dog was mine. I've got more questions on that Instagram story about, do you have a dog?
I have a pit bull.
And had it been the right woman that said, do you have a dog? Well, yes. Would you want to have a play date?
Well, yes, I do.
Yeah.
Do you have any interest in a separate bathroom?
Would you? And then I would have had to ask you to borrow your dog until you left. But yeah, no, thank you. Again,
thank you for having me.
It means a lot. It means so much.
Thank you for having me. I love Jackson, Mississippi so much. And I love that we're from here. And I have such hopes and dreams, and my heart desires for it to expand and grow, because there's still work to do.
Yeah. And shout out to Rocky Wilkins.
Love Rocky Wilkins.
Morgan and Morgan for the people.
That's right. For the people. I love you, Rocky.
Right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.